So I'm going to be talking about the digital transformation journey that I've been undergoing as Chief Technology Officer at Alexander Mann. I am the CTO at Alexander Mann. I joined in 2015. Before that, I worked as a CTO, CIO in, I worked for PwC for 10 years before that. I started off as an accountant, but I ended up working in their technology function, rising to technology director. Then I moved to Page Group, where I worked for 6 years as their global CIO. Page Group is a professional services recruitment business. Then moved to Hudson, where I mixed in recruitment process outsourcing, and then ultimately moved to AMS in 2015, Alexander Mann Solutions. This is my Twitter page. It's got a kayak in the background. I'm an endurance sports athlete. I can claim to be an athlete, which is because I did at one point get a world ranking in 2019, and I'll explain that at the age of 51. I have 3 children. I'm father to Dr. Tom, he's a GP, engineer Millie, who works at ARM, and then Dr. Maddie in the making. She's a med student. I have a very clever wife, and she's been really good at looking after our children. So I like endurance sports, and hold that thought around that endurance feature, because I think that is something that you have to have in this digital transformation. So a bit more about AMS. We were founded in 1996 by Rosalind Blair, who is just an amazing and inspirational person. She's an entrepreneur. She's brilliant at inspiring people. She's just been a brilliant leader and really directing AMS and building that as a business. We operate across APAC, EMEA, the US and Ireland. We have 7,000 employees, although this year we pretty much doubled in size, which has been really painful from an IT perspective, but also deeply satisfying. And the clients that we work with are big blue chip organizations, where what we do is we become their recruitment team. So we're not a recruitment agency, we become the recruiters, the administrators, the talent acquisition team for our clients, and we deliver what I am proud to say is probably the best service in the world in that particular space. We also we really value diversity and inclusion for our clients and for ourselves, and I'm happy to be involved in a neurodiversity program within our organisation, really driving different thinking, different models, and I've learned a huge amount in that whole program. So this is us. Our values are bold, passionate and authentic, and I think that really, if I walk into the office or I jump on Teams as it is now, I think that reeks in every single meeting. That is exactly what we are. So what you would expect at this point, if it was a digital transformation presentation, would be a slide like this, which I would then talk around all of the enablers and the propositions within digital transformation. But I'm not going to. I'm going to make it a bit more of a human story and make it something a bit more interesting. So first you need a bit of context. So if you think back to sort of 2016, and you'll see this now, but at that stage we were thinking about automation and AI, and we're thinking about all the impacts that they have on our businesses. And we're starting to see headlines like robots are going to be replacing people, and a lot of the jobs that we do currently are at risk. I happen to subscribe to a different model. In fact, quite often when I'm talking to people and they say, what do you do? I say, I work with AI and robots. And they say, oh, really? Who do you work for? And then I say, I work for a recruitment business. They kind of say, yeah, right, sure you do. Well, I actually believe that a lot of the technologies that we're talking about in digital transformation will augment the roles of individuals. And the best people will be the people that take advantage of that. So we're not making robots, we're making cyborgs. We were also at this stage seeing headlines about Uber building self-driving cars. It's interesting to see how that's still developing, still growing. We're building legislation and rules around that. We're seeing quotes from Andrew Ng, who was the chief scientist at Coursera. And he was saying artificial intelligence is the new electricity. We're starting to see some of that, but it certainly didn't expand so much as we expected. And we saw lots of scare headlines about the impact of how we were starting to rely on artificial intelligence and how that was going to expand and cause more hacking. At this point, I'd like to kind of demonstrate some of the real things that were causing all of this transformation. And my favourite story, and you can find this on Netflix if you want to, if you look for the story of AlphaGo. So the ultimate game challenge, I'm a gamer, is not chess, it's Go. And this is an amazing game which is highly complex. And back in 2015, something really interesting was happening in AI. AlphaGo was built as a tool to play some of the grandmasters who were playing Go. And the first grandmaster ever to be built by, ever to be beaten by an AI was Mr. Fan Hui, who in October 2015 lost 5-0. Now, that was seen as something absolutely amazing. And after that, AlphaGo was then brought in to play against Lee Sedol, who was the ultimate player, the greatest player of Go that there's ever been seen. He had 18 world titles. And I think, I seem to remember in the program, it was something halfway through the program, he gets beaten for the first time. And the emotional distress that he went through at this point was absolutely incredible. And then ultimately, AlphaGo played him and beat him 4-1, and 200 million people watched this, and this was a real landmark situation. Now, this is not the interesting part. The interesting part is, after that, they built AlphaGo Zero, and all they did with this tool was to explain the rules of Go to this tool, and then they got it to play itself over and over again. And because we have cloud computing, because we can tap into massive resources, this tool played millions upon millions upon millions of games. And then at the end of that, after 2 days of doing this, they flipped it over and they got it to play the tool that had beaten the world champion, and it beat it 5-0. And that's the transition to where you really get the kind of power of AI, where we couple massive cloud computing and massive opportunities to really throw a lot of resources at solving problems, certain problems, but certain problems. And this led to lots of people saying that we were approaching something called the AI singularity. And the AI singularity is where you get to the point where you've built a computer that can design the next computer, and it does it really quickly. Think about the AlphaGo Zero story where they just gave it the rules and it played itself over and over. Well, imagine the situation we get, iterative design of an AI. You know, you design the next solution that's to come after, and that will be better and better and better. There's a bit of a story there around Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I would design the computer that will come after me. So people are thinking, will that come? And we maybe will get to that point. So what is really happening to drive a lot of this? A lot of it is processing power and access to that on tap and on demand. A lot of it is the fact that we're harvesting a lot of data, and we can use that data to drive models, to build neural nets, to build things that allow us to answer questions that we probably didn't have before. I remember watching Horizon when I was growing up, when they were talking about artificial intelligence, and a lot of the mathematical tools and techniques that were used back in the 90s were things that exist now and are being used now. But because we have the data and the processing power, we can really take that to the next level. I think it's also worth remembering that we don't have infinite resources. And at the same time, we had Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, saying, we cannot keep pumping all of this capacity out. At some point there's going to be a limit, and we were consuming a lot of it. In fact, a good example is what we're doing with Bitcoin at the moment. If anybody is a gamer, you'll find it's almost impossible to buy a graphics card for the retail price. In fact, you've got to pay a huge amount for a graphics card, and that's because they're all being used to do Bitcoin mining. And every year we hear this story about the amount of power that is being consumed generating cryptocurrencies. And you can see on this slide that Bitcoin has outstripped the Netherlands as a power consumption metric this year, which is actually deeply worrying. The worrying thing is, what's the impact of that on our environment, and will this really drive global warming? What's the value that is really being driven by that? Somebody needs to think about this. I think we've probably got to find a better way of generating cryptocurrency that doesn't do that, and I think Ethereum is starting to do that. But this unlimited data, unlimited processing power is also driving the problems around all of the power consumption and challenges that we're hitting. At the same time, we're really looking at use cases for AI and seeing how we could use those. I found this, I mentioned Andrew Ng before, I found this quote really helpful, and I use this now to reflect back to really getting a bit more practical and thinking about how we really apply these things. So he said, pretty much, and what can an AI do? It can do pretty much anything that a normal person can do in less than a second, and we can use that to automate with AI. Now, what he's really saying there is those gut feel, experience, judgment type calls that we make as humans, where we've trained our neural net, our brain, our experience, to make particular decisions, and we do it in a second, is the kind of thing that he was saying he could use AI to do. And I reflect on that and think of a recruiter. Quite often, a lot of recruiters that I've spoken to would say, I can make a particular decision about a CV in about 7 seconds. And what they're doing is they're looking at 7 different things about that candidate, and then they're looking at the role they're trying to fill, and they're very quickly making those quick decisions. And we have found lots of opportunities, and you'll see in some of the things that we've done, where we've started to make use of this experiential data analysis and looking at matching and looking at the deep links of data, but also being aware of some of the pitfalls and challenges of that. Machine learning in practice, where we're starting to apply this data, breaks into 3 particular areas. And we found that we're using really unsupervised learning, which is the one in the middle. The one on the left, supervised learning, if you use that, typically that's used for things like generating things like translation machines and audio to text. That creates, if there's any bias in the data, it embeds it in the data, and therefore you have a whole bunch of challenges with that. So we tend to use something called unsupervised learning, which is looking for patterns and identifying things in the data, which then we can find elsewhere, rather than leveraging that bias. And then there's reinforcement learning, which is the tool that AlphaGo Zero was using, repeating and looking at routes to win, and then using that to rebuild the model. So we took all of this extra processing power, all this data that we were working with, thinking about some of the things that we saw earlier on about transforming our workflow. Now, we work across all these different shared service centres, and we had lots of people doing recruitment processes, and they all had great ideas about how we could really transform those and really make a difference. And we found a huge amount of opportunities to apply robotic process automation, AI, and really integrations between different systems. So I'll just quickly give you one aha moments for us, which was we had a situation working with a client where we had a vendor management system which had 70,000 candidates on it and a whole bunch of documents that needed to be organized into folders, tagged, password protected, and it was something that we really would probably have thrown about 10 people for 10 weeks, and we would have got them to organize all of that manually. And that would be our kind of our model, that we would have gone to our shared service centres and delivered that. And there needed to be a kind of systemization of naming all the files, setting passwords. It was a huge task. It was a tidy up after we'd gone through a particular transformation with a client. So we could spend about $35,000 doing that work, and also manage all the human error things. We'd need checks, we'd need reviews, and also it was incredibly boring, just unbelievably boring and very low job satisfaction. So what we did was we built a robot which we all called Doris, which actually stands for something which I can't remember now, but it was a digital operation related to the particular client that we were working for. And we got a couple of SMEs who really understood what they were trying to do, and we gave them a reasonable amount of time to build an RPA tool. And they ran through the process. And I remember really distinctly setting it up and thinking, well, it's going to take the 10 weeks that we needed with the people, but it will be operating and it won't make any mistakes and it will be really cool. So we set the tool up. We had no idea how it would work. We set up on a Friday, and I got a phone call on Sunday saying the robot seems to have broken. And I said, oh, that's all right, we'll just set it up on Monday morning and we'll rerun again. But it hadn't broken, it had finished. So within about 32 hours, this robot had finished. We didn't have any mistakes. We didn't need a desk or a chair. We didn't need coffee or tantrums. I know this probably doesn't sound that amazing, but at the time, we suddenly had all these other use cases which we could use for really driving the workflow of our activities. And we could see, again, something that was mentioned before, we could see taking this small thing and then multiplying it up across our whole business. So that's what we did. Now, bearing in mind, some of that second stage of digitization is very much internally focused. We branded this, so I don't apologize for these brandings, but these were the brandings that we got. This was internal to our people, and we wanted to get them excited, and we wanted them to share their ideas. So we had these cute names, we had these branded robots. Everybody knew about these different robots. I had people phoning me up saying, I've got an idea for a robot. And it's called this, and they gave me the name. Quite often I then had to build all the technology and have all the ideas around it. But we picked up those core workflow processes that we would do as part of our job. So interview scheduling, contractor referencing, e-signature for portal, that sourcing bot, so matching candidates to CVs, a check and chase bot, an onboarding bot, and started to build our workflows together with these tools. And then we started to look at that end-to-end piece and think of how could we turn recruitment and put these bots in. There were chat bots, there were AI tools, there were RPA tools. RPA we did a lot with, but I kind of moved away from that now, mainly because of the brittleness of the integrations that you build with UI integration, which has been challenging. UI integration is where you get a robot to actually enter things in fields on the screen of a system. And of course, with cloud computing, those UIs change all the time, and therefore you hit lots of challenges. So we moved much more to a kind of an integration model and using low-code tools. But we looked at our end-to-end workflow and our process. Then we moved on to that business transformation piece. So we went from the internal talking about the cute robots, and we started to move into what are these as products, business products that we can sell to our clients. We hit all the challenges of, before we were talking about efficiency, now we were talking about how much, how do we price it, how do we sell it, how do we market it. We turned all of our products into 6 different solutions, which I'll mention in a minute, but we deliver these now in 80 countries. For example, last year we ran over 800,000 check and chase reminders through our robots. We scheduled 117,000 interviews. We had chatbot tickets raised by people through our chatbots, 168,000 of those. And we've got 33 live check and chase automations across our clients. And these are in big blue chip organizations where we've had to work with them and their security and their data protection processes to make sure that all of this follows through and delivers as they expect. And this is part of the products and services that we deliver. So now the robots are gone, and the services and the products are heavily embedded in everything that we talk about. And all of these things are things we would sell naturally, which is a really good thing. It fits in exactly with what was being said at the beginning. So that is just a small part of the whole digital transformation, and it's that moving through to workflow, through to your business. But a whole bunch of things had to happen as well in the background. Initially, around 2016, we were talking about innovation and building those bots, but we had to build capability and get the talent in our organization and the partners to start to be able to accelerate and move forward, which is really hard when you're trying to do that at the same time as all the other pressures of driving a business forward and growing really fast. At the same time, we then started to think about how can we do this and do this cost efficiently. We started to automate and drive all that automation across our organization. We're seeing big efficiency savings as we scaled up and brought these, and we wanted to roll those back into our products and make sure that we enhance those. We also bought in and we started to leverage all the data that was flowing through these, and we started to create some new products. So we have a product called Intellerate, which really maps out the cost of contractors in lots of different areas and maps the market against our clients can all see what they're paying and compare that to the market from a contractor perspective. We rolled out new AI models and we rolled out we leveraged Power BI. I know Microsoft will be talking later on. We leveraged Power BI massively in order to give our clients a really great view on their talent acquisition processes. So we started to differentiate ourselves with our clients. And then we started to really explode and drive that across our global shared service centres, we started to work on world-class processes, those end-to-end processes, and the automation that built those, and really train that into our people, so they were starting to think about that. We implemented, or are implementing, Microsoft Dynamics as a core part of our transformation, and that's something that we're partnering, as I said, with Hitachi. We also we built DevOps in, we upgraded all of our development processes and bought SDLC, which is a software development lifecycle model, and we're now moving. We are ISO 27001 compliant, but we've added that into we're adding that into our development processes as well. And we moved to test automation and built in a whole bunch of low-code tools as well. And we implemented an iPaaS platform so we could integrate really well with clients. So all of those kind of maturity pieces that had to happen behind the scenes, all the cute robots and the products, needed a lot of other stuff behind the scenes to happen. And I like to think that I can't give you the full complexity of all of the challenges of that, but we needed skills. I needed people at a whole different level, including people that were able to articulate that to our clients, right through to developers that were building the skills and people mapping all the processes. I needed to build capacity to cope with the fact that IT was moving from delivering services to the business to being the business and being in the front office. I had to work with all of our data protection teams and our clients and look at the contracts that we built with our clients and the kinds of things that we agreed with candidates about what we could do with their data, and make sure we followed those rules. And as an organisation, because I work with really big blue chip organisations and investment banks, I had to operate at their level, which was to make sure the security was tip top and that how we manage data was tip top too. We had to look at the architecture that underpinned all of that, and now that we're turning a lot of the architectural elements into products that we're servicing out to clients. So that integration model that we have is easily a product that we could be selling and sharing with clients. And some of the things that we talked about that earlier on was the product focus. So moving away from thinking about efficiency and driving workflow to building products. IT is now delivering products and needs to think of it in that way. Think about how much you're charging for it, the pricing, how you're going to run that product in the market, have people that can sell that product. Security, I mentioned before, was absolutely essential. And we had to work with our clients incredibly tightly to make sure they understood the journey that we were going to be taking them on, because a lot of the integration journey and the digital transformation was really going to be a lot of change for them as well. And we had to be able to articulate that incredibly well. And that becomes really critical in the business transformation. When you're selling a digital product, they've got to get it. They've got to understand what you're trying to sell to them. And then lastly, core systems. So Dynamics 365 is proving to be a platform that we need to lean upon in order to plug all the different bits together to have the data flowing and be able to manage and deliver all of these different solutions. So that's just a snapshot to show you that the thread that I showed you before about that automation and driving those tools also had to be accompanied by a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen. What I call the pipes and sewers all had to be put in place in order to do that. So I definitely needed stamina. And I mentioned to you earlier that I'm an adventure racer. What this really means is back in 2019, I mentioned I got a world ranking. I haven't got a world ranking now because the race got cancelled in 2020 when I was going to race it again, and we had to defer to this year. So I'm currently going through a training program. I train 6 days a week in running, cycling, kayaking. We have a team of 4. It's mixed teams. We all train together. This weekend we did a 100k navigation challenge across the South Downs. You can see me just in the background there at the start line. The race that we did was a race called Itera Scotland. It's part of the Adventure Racing World Series. I try to have one of these races a year that I set as my target. It's enormously satisfying. It's great to be able to talk in the bar afterwards about it to people. But this was 5 days non-stop. There is sleeping, but basically you sleep wherever you happen to be. So if that's on the ground or in the mountains. You navigate yourself. You get maps and you get checkpoints. So it's a bit like orienteering. You carry the food and equipment that you need, although there are different places to pick up the different pieces. You have to make a whole bunch of decisions. You have to be very self-sufficient. and it's absolutely fantastic to do. I now do this with my children, although I'm a lot fitter than them, which is quite fun. So at the age of 55, I wait for them quite a lot, but they're getting a lot better. And this has really driven me to have a lot of stamina and be able to tolerate and keep the goal focused and never give up. And I think you also need that kind of stamina and the tenacity in driving a digital transformation. So that's me done. I just really want to echo, it was amazing. We hadn't prepared the 2 slides that we talked about, the 2 speakers. We hadn't spoken to each other, and I didn't see what was going to be presented. And everything that was said before absolutely echoes in my experience. Thank you.